This is a podcast by the Straits Times.
Hello and welcome to Pop Vultures, a pop culture podcast by the Straits Times. My name is Janlee and I'm joined by yeosamjo. Today we're going to talk about something a little bit more serious. If you've been anywhere at all on social media, you know that the hashtag Black Lives Matter has been trending. It has been the topic of the whole week, right? Because it was triggered by the death of George Floyd, an African American man who died after being arrested by police officers in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Samjo?
Yeah, so George Floyd actually died after, being arrested by officers, and one of these officers, kneeled on his neck continuously for nearly 9 minutes, causing him to suffocate. Now, this officer has since been fired from the police department and charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. Of course, this isn't the first time that police violence has led to the untimely death of a black person in the US. Many netizens, including celebrities, have spoken out and called for this injustice and systemic racism to stop. In the US especially, people have taken to the streets to protest and riot. So today we're going to look at some of the celebrities who have spoken out about George Floyd and stood in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. We'll look at how some of them have received backlash either for saying the wrong thing or staying silent.
Yeah, and lastly, we'll just share some of our thoughts and ask some questions about the entire situation. Firstly, should celebrities speak out or get political? Is it just their job to entertain? We see a lot of people who tell people to stick to acting, stick to music. What do we think of that? And can speaking out ever actually be wrong or inappropriate? Why do some people incur backlash when they speak out? What does it mean to be an ally to minority communities? And how is this relevant to Asia and to Singapore as well?
Right. Okay, so let's dive right into it, Jen. So those who have spoken out, many celebrities, in fact, right, in support of Black Lives Matter, many of them also rallying their fans to sign petitions or to donate to funds that support the protesters. So you have celebrities, big name celebrities like Beyonce, Trevor Noah, Mariah Carey, Lady Gaga, Adele, George Clooney, so on and so forth. And some of them also, have actually joined the protests themselves, like, Jamie Foxx, Ariana Grande, and Halsey. And Halsey was actually seen tending to injured protesters, right?
Yeah, she was seen and photographed, and it was put on social media.
Right. And of course, many of us have also seen the black towels on social media, in the past week. This is obviously the whole Blackout Tuesday movement. Celebrities like Rihanna, Britney Spears, Katy Perry, Eminem, Billie Eilish, Radiohead have all taken part in it. They've used the hashtag Blackout Tuesday. This is essentially the entertainment industry's way of closing shop for the day. Not so much a day off, but a day to protest Floyd's death, and also using this time to reflect on the situation and figure out how to move forward in solidarity. So many radio and TV stations, like MTV, VH1, have gone on complete blackouts to support the initiative, and major record labels as well, like Universal, Warner, Sony, Columbia, Capitol, and the aforementioned music stars have also gone on a social media blackout to show that they don't tolerate racism. Many of them have posted black squares on their Instagram or stopped posting completely, and stopped all sorts of self-promotion.
Yeah, I think in particular Taylor Swift had attracted a lot of attention because she had something very specific to say to US President Donald Trump, who previously tweeted, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, in response to the George Floyd protests, that in some parts of America has gotten violent and some people have taken advantage of the chaos to steal from stores. So she tweeted, after stoking the fires of white supremacy and racism your entire presidency, you have the nerve to feign moral superiority before threatening violence. When the looting starts, the shooting starts, we will vote you out in November. And she tagged Donald Trump in that tweet. It has over 2 million likes and over 460,000 retweets. So that's the power of the Swift. There have also been some Asian stars that spoke out. I think notably Tableau of Epic High, Eric Nam, Taeyang, they're all K-pop stars. They have on their social media either posted black squares or posted about the protests, in support of the protests and in support of Black Lives Matter. But it has not been common, I think, for stars in Asia to respond about it. I think for a lot of stars in Asia, it still feels like something that's not happening in their own country, and they might not feel the same solidarity.
Right, so we'll talk a bit later about how relevant all of this is to Asia and Singapore, for that matter. But now we want to talk about some of the celebs who have spoken up but received backlash, right? It hasn't been very smooth sailing for all of them. One example, of course, is pop star Madonna. She posted a video of her son, David Banda, dancing to Michael Jackson's They Don't Care About Us. Now, this is a song that has been used by Black Lives Matter protests before, and she accompanied it with the caption, as news of George Floyd's brutal murder travels across the world, my son David dances to honor and pay tribute to George and his family and all acts of racism and discrimination that happen on a daily basis in America. So, unfortunately for Madonna, and I guess for everyone who watched that video, it just didn't strike the right note. It came across as very tone deaf. This is a white woman getting her black son, whom she adopted from Malawi, to dance these problems away. So a lot of people slammed her for that. It's like, what good is all this dancing gonna do? And of course, that whole, again, white savior issue coming into play, right? And TV host Ellen DeGeneres also, got into some hot soup, right? With a tweet. She tweeted, like so many of you, I am angry and I am sad. People of color in this country have faced injustice for far too long. For things to change, things must change. We must commit ourselves to this change with conviction and with love. She has since deleted this tweet because
things to change, things must change. That is the most generic platitude ever.
Right, yeah. So she was slammed for being so vague, and for using all these platitudes, and more importantly also for not telling it like it is. She used people of color, instead of just saying black people. So she has since deleted that tweet and, has urged people to donate to the cause. And she's also posted a new video where she's close to tears and, and she's asking for peace and communication. So these are two examples of, huge celebrities, right, who have spoken up for the Black Lives Matter cause, but obviously it has blown up in their face, and backfired.
Speaking of blown up in their face, there's also Lea Michele, if you remember her. She was Rachel Berry in Glee. She tweeted, George Floyd did not deserve this. This was not an isolated incident and it must end. And then she hashtagged Black Lives Matter. Seems like a fine tweet, right? Seems like it's not an issue, but her black co-stars came out and dragged her and outed her as hypocritical because she was so Lea Michele was on Glee. I think she was on all seasons of Glee, right? She was the main star. She was the big
Rachel
star.
Berry.
Rachel Berry, yes.
Yeah.
And Glee has a lot of people join the seasons later on. So there was this Samantha Ware, this actress who was on Glee as Jane Hayward. I think she was on Glee in one of the later seasons, who claimed that she was bullied by Lea on set. So she saw this tweet and she retweeted it and said you made my television gig a living hell. And she was like, you told everyone that if you had the opportunity you would defecate in my wig, among other traumatic microaggressions. So Lea Michele has been outed as a hypocrite because she apparently made the set very, very uncomfortable and hostile for her castmates who were people of color, other co-stars like Amber Riley, who's also black. She played Mercedes Jones. Alex Newell, who played Unique Adams, retweeted that with very supportive gifs, they supported Samantha Ware in speaking out. So you can tell
Amber Riley was sipping tea, right?
Yeah, Amber Riley was sipping tea, and Alex Newell was saying drag her, that kind of stuff. It really, everybody came out of the woods, and later on, more people, normal people who have had maybe chance encounters with Lea Michele, people who were on the set of Glee as backgrounds, as extras, actually came out and said Lea Michele used to call the background actors on Glee cockroaches. That was how she referred to them.
No.
And she would tell people oh, you can't sit with us, you don't belong here, when they're sitting down having lunch with the cast, that kind. So she was a total mean girl and this is
What
basically
is wrong with
confirming
her?
Exactly, and this is basically confirming earlier claims by Naya Rivera, who played Santana on Glee, that Lea was very hostile to her. And she's really kind of had this for a long time coming, because even in the Broadway circle, because Lea Michele can sing and she's very talented in singing, even in the Broadway circle, she is not beloved. She has been, she has a reputation of being a very mean girl, even in the Broadway circle. So that was really something that blew up in her face. It's not that her tweet was wrong, it was that she herself is a hypocritical person and she was performing this allyship when she did not actually reflect that in her actions.
Right, so she got called out there and there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, closer to home, we have Malaysian beauty queen Samantha Katie James. Now, if some of you don't remember her, she's basically that Malaysian beauty queen who 3 years ago wore that very famous nasi lemak dress, remember?
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah, so that's what really made her famous, I guess. She
Nasi
went
lemak queen.
on Nasi Lemak Queen, yeah. She went on IG stories, to comment about the George Floyd situation, right? And guess what? She asked African Americans to, I quote, relax, take it as a challenge, makes you stronger, unquote. And then she said that, she basically implied that they chose to be born as a colored person in America. And then she went on to talk about how, like, hunger and poverty still exist, it's all inevitable. And she said that, oh, it seems like the whites have won because if you're angry, you respond in anguish, they have power over you, yada, yada, yada. Basically,
Oh my god.
she shot herself in the foot. I feel like she was really out of her depth here, and she was slammed for obvious reasons because it was so
Isn't she half
insensitive.
white?
She has some white ancestry in her, like, she's
Okay.
part Brazilian, part Chinese, so on and so forth.
Girl.
And she actually she used her mixed heritage to defend herself by saying that, I understand what it's like to be. She essentially implied that she understands what it's like to be a minority in Malaysia because of her mixed heritage. So obviously, this didn't go down well with a lot of people, right? And
Yeah.
she was slammed by her followers. She was slammed by other Malaysian celebrities. Henry Golding went at her. Yuna went at her as well. She's since apologized, although I feel like her apology kind of made it worse for her, and she's dug herself into this very deep hole. The last I checked, she's lost a makeup endorsement. And I mean, girl, sometimes if you don't really know what you're talking about, maybe
Just don't say
don't say anything. Yeah,
Yeah,
no one's
there
going
was
to.
no need for you to wade in, but
Yeah,
oh well.
I know.
Now, if you're enjoying this episode of Pop Vultures so far, do find us on the Straits Times podcast channel, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Some of our episodes are on YouTube too, so check those out. Like and rate us. Now back to our show. Let us continue with this week's very severe topic of advocacy for Black lives.
Right. So of course we're talking about George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, and all the celebrity backlash that's been going on. Of course, this backlash that some of the celebrities have gotten, right, has led to many people saying, hey, maybe celebrities should just stick to their craft and not wade into anything political, not say anything. But then there is the flip side, right, Jen? Because sometimes
Yes.
keeping quiet can also be quite damning.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, I feel that in some cases you can't just pretend like things aren't going on. Like, America is literally on fire in some parts, and I think it does matter. I'll talk more about this later. I think it does matter to speak out, lah.
right. And so Lewis Hamilton, F1 driver, of course, he called out his Formula One community for staying silent. He said, I see all of you who are staying silent. You're some of the biggest stars. And of course, he talks about how his sport is very white dominated and like he's one of the only people of color. But yet he feels like he's alone. This was basically like an open call to all of them to say, hey, stand by me, stand by colored people right now. And since then, other F1 drivers like Daniel Ricciardo from Australia and Charles Leclerc from Monaco have spoken up. And Charles, for example, he said that he felt out of place initially and uncomfortable sharing his thoughts, but now he realizes that he was wrong, and it's our responsibility to speak out against injustice. Don't be
And
silent. Yeah.
someone like Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is basically the Shakespeare of our times, but he's the creator of the hit Broadway musical Hamilton. So he apologized for the Hamilton's team delay in taking a stance. And he acknowledged how much of Hamilton, which is a hip hop musical, it's very much like there are a lot of raps in it. He acknowledged how much it was influenced by black artists and black culture, and basically said that if there weren't this rich black culture, there wouldn't be Hamilton. So he had to apologize for that as well.
Right, and another one who had to apologize is, of course, rapper Lil Nas X, right? The guy behind Old Town Road. He apologized, he's black and everything, but he apologized for not speaking up sooner. He tweeted, I'm sorry for not using my platform to speak up more on the situation. I honestly feel as though it has become so normalized that even I myself am numb to police brutality towards black people. I hope this time around something changes.
And I think
So,
this is a good segue for us to get into our conclusion and some of our thoughts, lah. Because it's almost like if you speak up, you're damned. If you don't speak out, you're also damned. What's what's the good way to speak out here? How should you speak out? How to get political? Should celebrities even speak out, Samjo? Do you think they should just stick to entertaining?
I mean, what is entertainment, right? Entertainment has this long history of being political to begin with. I mean, I'm just trying to say that politics is so intertwined with their art, If celebrities don't use their platform to change things for the better, then what good are they, right? Yes, they are entertainers, but ultimately they're also human beings who have the power to influence thought and shape behavior. So I'm all for celebrities speaking up and lending their support to causes and movements that they, truly believe in. Sure, sometimes they can be, pretty tone deaf when speaking up. For example, Madonna and Ellen DeGeneres, right? So I think that if you're going to say something, make sure you back it up with some kind of action, especially in this case, someone has just died, right? So is it really tasteful to show your son dancing? I mean, no matter how good of a dancer he is?
Maybe just, promote some donation drives, Madonna has a history of being kind of odd on social media, I feel.
I do think that, she and Ellen, they're all coming from a very good place. I don't think they're coming from a place of malice at all. But I do think also that, you have to really choose your words carefully, especially if you are trying to be a good white ally, right? Like, know that when you say things like, for things to change, things must change, obviously it's going to come across as
Rings
insincere.
hollow. Yeah,
very hollow. And when you use a euphemism like colored people instead of black people, it just betrays a certain level of discomfort with coming to terms with the truth, right?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I feel the same way as well. I mean, I think celebrities have as much right to speak up as anyone. Like, they're citizens, they have a place in civil society, they have as much right as anybody to take part in advocacy. And just like what you said, art and pop culture has always been extremely political. Like, increasing exposure in TV, in film, in music has always been a sign of progress and has always helped to move forward minorities, right? That's why Black Panther was such a huge a moment for black people, because it showed black people in these positions of power, in this position, empowering roles, right?
Yeah.
Think about Me Too and rape culture and how differently we are discussing consent on TV shows as our understanding of rape and our understanding of consent grows and evolves. That's very important. And also, just like how much black culture has influenced mainstream music and film and TV. Like, so much of mainstream culture, so many mainstream artists that we like have profited off black culture, which influences a lot of things like Lion King, hip hop, Hamilton. All that stuff comes from something that is rooted in black culture. So you can't
Right
just
on.
you can't just take and refuse to give back. So in that sense, I feel that there are celebrities who absolutely have a moral obligation to speak up. And some people will say, "Ah, yeah, it's very performative." But like, yeah, that's kind of a celebrity's job. Like, every public statement from a celebrity is gonna be somewhat performative. But even just performing well can be useful, can galvanize people. Taking a stance is still something. I know, Samjo, you have thoughts on T Swift. I have thoughts on T Swift too.
Yeah.
Like,
Everything she does is so calculated.
it's super calculated. Her Instagram posts are super calculated. It's very like, she will walk out of the gym, in $3,000 Oscar de la Renta dresses in the past. Like, she's not sincere, I think, in a lot of the ways that she presents herself. And I know this opens me up to attack, but I've said what I said.
It's okay, I'll
But
stand by you, Jen.
yeah, but the thing is that tweet that she did was, even if it was calculated, that is a choice. I don't find her particularly brave or inspiring, but she made a choice, a very specific statement to vote Trump out. And that counts for something. And she has a fan base that supports Trump. Like, make no mistake, T Swift fans, some of them support Trump. So she is essentially saying, hey, I don't support the same thing that you support, even though you like my music, even though I earn money from you. And that might be her cutting off, a stream of revenue from certain part of her fan base, right?
Right,
So
right.
that's really something lah.
Which brings us to our next question, can speaking out ever be wrong or inappropriate, right? And why is it that some people, when they speak out, they incur backlash and other people don't? What do you think, Jen?
Yeah, I think like for Taylor Swift, the reason why I thought that tweet was very powerful because she made it very specific. She tagged Donald Trump. She said, "We are going to vote you out in November." That is a stance that you cannot walk back from. You get what I mean? Like, that is not that is no gray area there, which I think is why Ellen's first initial statement that she has since deleted was so badly received because she refused to get specific. She did not mention George Floyd. She did not use the word racism. She did not use the phrase police brutality or anything, you know. And this is very superficial, sort of like, let's all be friends, be kind, you know. You know, Ellen has
Right.
a whole brand, be kind. And
Right,
it's really
right.
starting to grate on people. What are you trying to say? Are you trying to say we should be friends with police officers? We should try and understand police officers who have murdered people in broad daylight? Like, you know, that sort of stance can be very grating in times like this. And Ellen's had a bit of a bad PR year. You know, there was the coronavirus situation, and she talked about how it feels like being in jail while she was in her $1 million home.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it's not the best time for her, lah. And I think, you know, and this also goes back to the Lea Michele thing. Are you examining yourself when you speak up? Like, if have you done anything in the past that was apathetic or ignorant or straight up mean, you know, like acknowledge that if you want to speak up for this, you have to acknowledge your own mistakes. So that's why Lea Michele was dragged lah, because like clearly you Black Lives Matter, but you wanna, you know, defecate in your co-star's wig, like dude, no, like that is hypocritical and performative in the worst extreme, right?
Yeah.
So she rightfully got caught out for it lah. The other example that I saw that I actually felt was not bad was Blake Lively. So she did post about the BLM movement, and she also like she made references about how in the past she has been ignorant and she has made mistakes, which is a start lah. I mean, like, you know, Blake Lively got married on a southern plantation with Ryan Reynolds. Like
Oh, she
they,
did?
yeah, their wedding was on a southern plantation, which is like that is so tied to the history of slavery, and of course people were upset with them for. I think rightfully upset with them for taking a place with such a painful history and essentially turning it into a like fairy tale wedding destination photo op, right?
Celebration, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you know, I'm glad that she at least has somewhat reflected on her own actions, or at least, you know, talked about reflecting on her own actions. Which brings us to again segue into our next question: what does it mean to be an ally, Samjo?
Well, I think, being an ally really ties back to the first point that we made, about showing support for others who have been victimized or marginalized or suffered any form of injustice, right? A good ally is one who isn't afraid to speak up or march in protests, right? Even if it means losing followers or potentially getting hurt, right? So you talked about Taylor Swift possibly alienating her followers who might be Trump supporters, right? And speaking of getting hurt, like, I have so much newfound respect for people like Ariana Grande and Halsey. These are people who
Yeah,
walk the talk, they don on their masks, they carry all their placards, and they risk getting fired at by the police, which is what's happening to some of the protesters now.
like
So
Kiki
the,
Palmer as well. She was also at the protest.
right. So in this respect, I feel like, Lewis Hamilton is right. Staying silent is problematic, especially if you are a person of influence. You know, it just shows that you have a certain level of apathy, lah. You're there for the good times, right? But what about the bad? Like, and this may not be your community struggle, right? You may not be black, but how much are you willing to stick up for someone else, another group who is getting mistreated, and that says a lot about you. I think the least you can do is to really speak up and reach out to your followers and say, hey, let's not sleep on this anymore. Let's all wake up and smell the coffee and do something about it. Make some change. What do you think?
I definitely agree with everything you said, and I also feel that to be a good ally, it's very important to listen when people speak. Like, I don't think it's the best to be like, hey, go to your black friends and be like, hey, go to your minority friends and be like, hey, teach me how it feels. I don't think that's the best thing. They don't have the obligation to teach you, but when they do speak, listen. Like, spend some time understanding how they feel, how they go about the world, and educating yourself on issues that hurts them more than it hurts you, right? Don't dismiss the people who will feel the effects of systemic racism more than you do. I think that's really important, and I think that's an advice that we can take in Singapore as well. Like, some Singaporeans have been posting the black tiles on social media. They have been posting about the Black Lives Matter movement, and there are also some people who feel that it doesn't concern us. It's happening in the U.S. It's not our issue.
Yeah,
What do you
some of them
think,
have.
Samjo?
I don't get it. Some of them have been saying online, well, all this is happening in the U.S. It's not really our problem. Hello, newsflash, racism and inequality exists everywhere, Just because you don't witness outright acts of racism on a daily basis doesn't mean they're not there, Please don't turn a blind eye to these things. Instead, use this chance to educate yourself, okay, on what's happening in the US and with their history, but also use it as a chance to examine our own actions, examine your own privilege, for instance, and examine how certain microaggressions just have no place in this world anymore. You know what I'm trying to say? And I think you made a good point earlier also about how other artists have benefited from Black culture, The same way also, if you are a consumer, right, you're listening to Black music, like jazz, you're listening to hip hop, you're listening to the rap, and that's just one aspect of it. But you're also consuming pop culture by Black artists, be it shows or movies or whatever. Then I think the least you can do is to try and be an ally to their struggles and kind of understand where they're coming from and educate yourself, and don't be like Samantha Katie James and just say that, oh hey, relax, it's not really a big deal, just water off a duck's back. Like, don't trivialize other people's problems is what I'm saying, and instead use it as a chance to look at your own lives and see how you can effect change in your own community.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, we're both two Chinese kids, right? And we've grown up in a majority Chinese country. But
Yep.
we all know that biases exist. Even if in Singapore we don't have police killing people on the streets, which I'm very, very thankful for. I'm glad that our public servants are people like that. But we have all seen, like, biases and prejudice in our own lives. Like, we have all seen job ads saying Chinese speakers only. We all remember the Ipe brownface saga, right? We've all known at least one person who has used derogatory ways to refer to minorities and try to mask them off as jokes. Like, we all know that one dude, right? Like, we all know.
Yeah. Or several dudes.
Yeah, several dudes or aunties, like, we all know. So this isn't an American issue, but racism is an issue that affects people across countries and across just every part of the world. Like, we shouldn't be self-congratulatory and be like, oh yeah, see, this is not happening in our own country, we are so much better. But we should be extra aware of how not to be insensitive in our own communities. So
Yeah.
that's really how I feel.
Ultimately, I think recognize that it's a human rights issue, and that the same way we don't agree with slavery, and we know that stuff like bigotry and homophobia and sexism is all wrong, right? We also shouldn't be supporting what's going on right now, and we should be doing it for all humankind instead of just going, oh, that's them and this is us.
Yeah, we should really just take some time during this week where things are so intense and so severe to reflect on your own biases against people of other races and to support. I think if you want to support, if you want to donate to the cause, go ahead and donate to the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah, it's the least we can do. Well, I guess that's our dose of pop culture for this week, Jen.
Yes.
A lot for us to ruminate on. Please write in and tell us what you think on this whole issue, your thoughts on George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter movement, and even on the backlash that celebrities have been receiving. We would love to hear from you. So please write in to us. You can reach us via email at podcast@sph.com.sg. You can also write to Jen directly at janlee@sph.com.sg.
sph.com.sg. You can also find me on my Instagram at janlee_writes.
Or you can write to me at yeosamjo@sph.com.sg or on Instagram at sam_jomato.
Till next time, he's Sam Joe.
She's Jen.
And this was Pop
Pop Vultures.
Thank you for listening.
That was an SPH podcast by the Straits Times. Find us on Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts, or streaming on Google Home. Do feedback to us at podcast@sph.com.sg. You can also check out more podcasts on various topics at the Straits Times, the Business Times, and Money FM 89.3.